Hello, welcome to CLA Interviewing Strategies. We will briefly discuss the phases of an interview from the first telephone call to closing the interview. We will also give you some strategies that will help the interview go your way and avoid mistakes. Remember, companies hire people because they have challenges, situations, or problems that need to be dealt with. Plain and simple, you need to prove you are the solution to their problems, and remember, their business problems are opportunities for you. The first phone call. When initially called for an interview, clarify which position you will be interviewing for and ask for a job description if possible. Ask, what was it about my resume that caught your attention? Very important to ask this, it can give you insight into what the employer's needs are. For example, if they respond with something like, I was impressed with how you grew sales, you will know they are looking for candidates that have a proven track record in growing sales. Last, ask how much time should be set aside for their interview. Once the follow-up is scheduled, do your homework on the company once more. Research the company website, social media pages, annual reports, and press releases. Remember, the telephone phase is a pre-screening interview that is used to disqualify candidates before a face-to-face interview. Here are some strategies for a telephone interview. Prepare as you would for a face-to-face interview. No pajamas. Get dressed and groomed. Be sure to be in a quiet environment. Don't take the call in a car or outside. Have some water and your cheat sheets in front of you, but don't rustle your paper or take big gulps on the phone. Make sure your phone is charged and the microphone is close to your mouth. Answer questions as if you are looking the person in the eye. Use SPAR when responding to questions. We will review the SPAR technique in a moment. And smile and be upbeat. Express positivity in your voice and your tone. Whether over the phone or in person, interviews usually begin with, tell me about yourself, TMAY. This should not be a regurgitation of your resume. They already have it in front of them. It should not be where you grew up and how many dogs you had. TMAY used to be around 2 minutes long, but now, due to people's tendency to expect things quickly, such as a 6-second rule for resumes, the TMAY needs to be short, around 30 seconds. It's best to respond with this example. My career has primarily encompassed blank and blank. Or you can try, what I have really enjoyed doing is blank and blank. These points should be relevant to the position for which you are interviewing. Remember, the goal of the TMAY part of an interview is to establish credibility, show behavioral strengths, and talk about what motivates you. Avoid telegraphing your liabilities and weaknesses as well. After telling the interviewer about yourself, there are 5 objectives to the rest of the interview. Number 1, determine the employer's needs. Number 2, communicate your ability to fulfill those needs. Number 3, establish your value. Number 4, differentiate yourself from your competition. And number 5, justify your purchase price. Now understand this, money questions can come early in the form of, what are you looking to make? Or, what are your current earnings? Don't be fooled. The first to name a number loses this game. If asked, use the U-turn technique to defer or deflect the money question. If asked money questions, say, well, what do you have budgeted for this position? This should be the first thing that you say when asked, what are you looking to make? Either they will tell you or they won't. If they disclose a range, remain open to it. If they don't disclose a range, they're fishing for your range. You can also say, certainly I'm looking to make as much as possible, and I'm willing to consider a variety of compensation structures to achieve that. And when pushed to give a number, remember, never give a raw number. Give a wide range. But be sure to use Glassdoor.com and Salary.com to research the correct range ahead of time. Hopefully you can land a face-to-face interview by doing well in the phone interview. Here are some strategies for face-to-face interviews. Remember, arrive 15 minutes early. Check your appearance in the restroom prior to checking in at the reception area 10 minutes before the interview. Greet the receptionist with courtesy and a smile. They often report their initial impressions regarding candidates as well. Make sure you accept water when offered. You may need it. Interviewers form their opinion of a candidate in the first 5 minutes of an interview. Make the most of these crucial first minutes by using a firm handshake, have your icebreaker topics in mind, show direct eye contact, and take soft control of the interview by using your techniques like TMAY and the ASQ technique. Now, let's go over the ASQ technique, or Asset, Spar, Question. Use ASQ in response to questions regarding your skills and achievements. Also use ASQ as a way to uncover more detail about the employer's needs. A is for asset. State your skill and accomplishment, like, I have extensive experience in building high-performance teams. SPAR, S-P-A-R. Back up your statement with an example. Tell them how you will help them by pointing to your past experience. Remember, SPAR means situation, pain, action, and results. These are specific stories about your professional experience. Give a brief description of the business situation. Explain the pain that was caused by the situation. Explain the action that you took to heal the pain. And last, describe the results of your actions. For example, you can say, most recently, I built a team that rapidly exceeded all sales goals when they were falling, and became the top performing team in the company within 6 months. And Q is for question. Follow up with open-ended questions. Begin your questions with who, what, when, where, why, and how. For example, what challenges are your sales teams currently facing? Their response could be something like, our sales teams seem to have hit a plateau. Then you can say, well, I have experience turning around sales teams' performance. Would you like to hear about that? Then of course, they will say yes, and you can launch into a spar about how you turn things around. Now, if you are asked questions like, what is your greatest weakness? Or what has been your greatest failure? You might not be able to use SPAR to turn things around. So here are some strategies for handling negative focused questions. Over the past few years, behavioral interviews have become very popular, as have increasingly negative focused questions. It can be unnerving because you, as the candidate, want to convince the employer how great you are instead of answering negative questions. However, employers get a good idea of the candidate by how they respond to negative questions. They are looking for people who have personal insight and humility, embrace personal growth, and are not defensive. Again, some examples of a negative focused question can be, what is your greatest weakness? What is your greatest liability? What has been your biggest failure? What was the biggest mistake you've made? And what is the hardest part about being a manager? Answer these types of questions with the in the past answer technique. Choose something from your past that was challenging for you, but you overcame it. Or choose something that you are currently working on improving. For example, when asked, what is your greatest weakness? You can say, in the past, I had a tendency to analyze things perhaps more than they needed to be, and consequently, I struggled with getting things completed on time. However, I've learned that I don't need to overanalyze, which has led to me completing projects on time. When answering negative focused questions, you may become vulnerable to tougher follow-up questions. To tackle these questions, use the ARTS technique, or acknowledge, redirect, test, and spar. First, acknowledge the concern, not the liability. I can understand that might be a concern from you. Then redirect. However, I actually do have experience in the following, blank and blank. Then test the question. If I can demonstrate to you how I blank and blank, then say, can I provide an example? And then remember to go into a SPAR, situation, pain, action result. Communicate your example, then close with a question. Does that address your concern? Being prepared to go a few levels deep in any line of questioning is critical. Now, let's talk about closing the interview. If you've been using the ASQ technique to its fullest advantage, most of your questions will have been answered well before the end of the interview. But don't wait until the end of the interview to hit the interviewer with a lot of questions. Always ask this as well. Is there anything that would prevent us from taking the next step? If not, then reaffirm your value. Restate their needs and how you will meet their needs. Then determine next steps. Ask what the next step is and the timetable. Find out who you should contact in the meantime, should you think of any additional questions. So, let's start practicing these skills. Download the sample interview questions in this lesson to practice TMAY dialogues, the U-turn technique, SPAR examples, and other tough questions any interviewer is likely to use. Good luck out there.